So welcome you to the third sessions of today. So this morning we had already quite a lot of discussion, very masculine discussion, I'm afraid, on authenticity. So now we have a little bit of the feminine touch on from different perspectives as well. For example, like this morning we have a very distinguished scholar in music that works talked with us already, but this time we will hear from a completely new directions. So please welcome Pichaya Suphavanij from Bangkok Art and Cultural Center, Waraluck, Hiransrettawat, a film director of the very famous film now, Your Music, and Kusra Mukdawijitra from Museum Siam, also a curator and a very renowned anthropologist as well. So just put you in just quickly into the context of why that we invited these three persons. That I very luckily in my working experience I encounter these three very distinguished artists here, and maybe I just quickly give you a brief directions of what kind of things that why I asked them to be here today. So this is the this is the exhibitions that we had a few years ago with Kun Pichaya, when Kun Pichaya Suphavanij is the curator, and this is done in Bangkok Art and Culture Center a few years ago, and basically it's the sound installation exhibitions, and we have invited a few artists to work with us, so you can see the ideas of why we are trying to make people aware of the existence of sound around us, using the medium of visual art in this sense. So this is some of the sculptures that you make sounds, and it means the sounds create vibrations to other people and make effect to other people. And this is also, you may be familiar with Bangkok Art Center, which I highly recommend you to make a visit over this Friday. And also, and this is another artist's work that he will be speaking also this afternoon, Dr. Chiradet and Dr. Sean David also with his very big ears here, so he will have a concert this evening as well. And alongside that sound installation exhibitions, we also have few activities that happen. One is one of the Studio Music Fabric concert with Professor Dieter Mark, and also the contemporary music ensemble from Germany. We have the children's activity, which is called Ridugan Ha Siang, finding the sound, the season of finding the sounds. We have the activities that on the ideas of what sounds inward should mean, sound in poem and all this kind of thing. So that was like a general ideas of how I get encounter with Kun Pichaya. And of course, the second person that I would like to also introduce her work is Kun Waraluck Pisali Naha. Okay, just a moment. This is okay.
โลกมันต้องมีดนตรีหลายๆแนวครับเมืองไทยมันไม่ควรมีดนตรีแบบเดียวก็คืออันนั้นอาจจะขายกันระเบิดเถิงก็แล้วแต่มันต้องมีดนตรีที่แมนสตรีมอาจจะไม่เห็นลักษณะแล้วมาเอาเก็บเป็นแรงบันดาลใจไปพัฒนาต่อก็เป็นไปได้อะไรเงี้ยผมว่ามันส่งเสริมกันและกันไปเรื่อย
that's Kun Waraluck, a film director. She also addressing a very interesting questions to what music of our culture should mean as well. And the last person, Kun Kusra. Five examples.
Solo dari wayatmu ini. Sedari dulu jadi perhatian insani. Musim kemarau tak seberapa air mengalir. Di musim hujan air meluap sampai jauh. Mata airmu dari Solo terkurung di dalam. Air mengalir sampai jauh. That's the short examples of the work that these three distinguished guests of us today has been posting, I would say, posting a short questions towards the understanding of music in their works. So maybe if I could maybe ask the first question, how did you encounter to music in your work, music in any meaning in your work, and what do you think how it plays the significant elements within your work? Yeah. Can I start with Pichaya?
Sure. Okay. I have to explain that my background is actually visual arts. I'm a curator in visual arts field, and of course that it's quite familiar to know about sound art, but I never really actually get into it until recently that there was an exhibition about young artists, and I thought that the dimension of the exhibition lacks certain qualities. So that's when I start to kind of research on sound arts and curate a sound art to be with other kind of different kind of arts like paintings, installation, and have them all in one exhibition. But that was quite basic because we built a room, an empty room, and the artist worked on military drone. It was a drone work, so it's quite contemplative, and it was amazing. And I noticed the behavior of audience, that they stayed in the room and they sat and they really listened which is a very different behavior when they react with a painting. So there's a length of time, the span of time that they spend more. And the second project is actually the Here project that we are doing together. I invite Dr. Notai to be a co-curator, and it's a little bit different from the previous one, because the previous one, the sound work is in a room. It's a quiet room, and you're supposed to sit there and listen. But the here it has different brief, because the space that you see, it's a ramp, it's an open space, and BACC, Bangkok Art and Culture Center, is like a donut, so there's a hole in the middle. So acoustically, it's a nightmare. And we know that, and we use it as a brief for the project. So the way that the artists work with the space is interesting, because each artist will have continuous space, so their sound is overlapped. So it's not like this is my work and it ends here and you're not going to hear anything when you're going to the next work. It's not like that. So there's a transitional period when you see both works, both sounds. And that creates a completely amazing atmosphere for the whole building to hear how this works. And then later, the third project is a little bit more experimental. It's called Drift, that I worked with the sound organizer, Koichi Shimizu, who is a sound artist and sound engineer. And what we did is also a little bit explore another meaning of sound by creating 3 series. Like the first series, we used the word duration, and we asked the artist to explore the time that they would use in their work. For example, we give them 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And it's sort of like compose the work, like or curating the works and compose the work live, because we work with them maybe before the concert, like 5 minutes, give them this and then the next session, we called it Tool, T-O-O-L, tool that we normally think of it like an instrument, and we ask them, okay, if it's not an ordinary instrument, what kind of instruments could it be, and what would they think of the instruments in their mind? And also it's amazing because they use the like sunglasses object that they found in daily life and compose them together to create sounds. And the third one, the last one, is called Accident, that we want to relate to the work of Cage and the Fluxus, to refer back to the history of sound art a little. And it's amazing because we deliberately select visual arts, the contemporary artists, to work with the sound artist and create one work in one space. And we want to see what happened. So it's like a performative works between the musicians and the visual artist and the sound composer working together in one space, and we allow for mistakes to happen. That's the whole idea of the session, that you allow for something new, and it's not like, oh, this is wrong in visual art, this is wrong, or this is wrong for sound art. No, we didn't expect that. So this is kind of my take on the sound in my work, just kind of see the quality of the medium in the work.
Wow, that's actually very relieving. Maybe musicians should maybe that's what we should be taking actually, like just the duration 5 minutes and we do this and tools and all this kind of accidents. So maybe that's a way that we can explore actually with limitation and not coming from the music itself, but it poses the possibilities for musicians to work as well. So now can we hear a little bit from Kun Waraluck? So how about you?
Well, as I've been described as a filmmaker.
And musicians, of course.
And I actually have no music background. I'm a professional listener. I love to hear music. How music come into my life is just, I believe that human beings have every element to build their own personality, and as you discussed this morning, it's all about authenticity. So it's a very edgy topic to discuss about, actually. So what I found music is particularly interesting for me as a person or as a filmmaker to focus, especially in the film. It's all about music, but it's not just about music, because music is, as the first line in the movie, it started by music is a sound composed by human. It's just from an ordinary man. He's a man who makes saxophone. He's not an academic. So it's a very, very common thing. So once when music is made by human, that's when it's interesting, because when human involved, if human make music, music will reflect human. So that's the kind of question that I always asking in the film, that what else does come with music? So could it be attitude, environmental, like upbringing, class, society, or a set of knowledge? So anything goes. So that's how I set the task to explore more about music in film, and we actually have a collective of the variety kind of music in your music, because what I found after research, then I found that the music in the country and the music in the city, they have a very distinguished, and sometimes they clash without being clashed. Or I think I stop it there, and then we can talk
we
more.
can come as the second round, and maybe that your reasons of working with music really well connected to Kun Kusra, what is you're going to talk about, because now you link that the music is not only something as an object that we cannot touch, but it's always related to a person, always related to the culture or the experience and upbringing and everything. So maybe if you Kun Kusra can explain just a little bit about the ASEAN Year exhibition of what you see from the anthropological point of view.
Not sure. Actually, my background is not in anthropology, it's in sociology. Andจะพูดภาษาไทยดีกว่าได้ไหม? I think my brain stopped thinking in English, so I'm gonna talk in Thai and let her interpret. ได้ไหม?
But you sure you want me to translate?
Okay, I'll try. Actually, I just want to tell you how the sound come into my life. I mean, actually, I didn't realize that it's very important until I was in Vietnam 10 years ago. And we've been traveling to the northwestern Vietnam, and there's one town that I really love it. And the name of the town is Lai Châu. It's a very small town, beautiful town, kind of border town, and has a long history. I mean, if you come from Dien Bien Phu and on the top of the mountain, you look down to the valley, you will see Lai Chau, and the sound of Lai Chau is very unique. You hear the rooster, you hear the water and the stream, and then you get down and you hear more and more. But it's nothing. I mean, I don't hear that in Bangkok. But and once you get to know people told me that, okay, we are going to disappear because the government is going to build the big dam. They said it's the biggest dam in Southeast Asia. So the second time I went there, people said that please come back and record us, show the world that we exist, show that we have the culture, and we'll sing and we'll dance, and they want us to record, but we didn't go back. And yeah, that moment really, but the town is gone now because it flooded by the water. And to me, Lai Chau is the soundscape of northwestern Vietnam. It's a very important part, and that's why I interesting in the soundscape of Southeast Asia. Like there's some sounds that we don't hear it anymore, and that's how the project happened.
Okay. This is quite interesting that you can see the three person has almost like different grasps to what sounds of music means. For Kun Aim, she's interested in the phenomenon of the sound, how the sounds was made, and how the musician interact with other people, with among musicians. And you're keen on how the music actually exists in everybody, in the person's life, and you're thinking of sound not only as a music, but the sound, even the rooster sound, the water, but it's a soundscape almost. So you can see that maybe like for us musicians, we might always concern music as something that made by human or produced as a result of creative work, but maybe this is something that's other aspect that music also being interested by other people from other fields as well. So in this case, because it seems like you have already a completely different point of view of what music means, for you, what do you think of the music? What should be, like Dieter mentioned earlier about here and now, what should be the music of here and now in your understanding?
It's a very broad and difficult question. Because it can be looked in many different perspectives. I would say from my perspective then that here and now it's almost, you can look at it in a Buddhism kind of way, something very particular at the moment, something very transient. But also, I'm wondering about here, because the physical space, we were talking about it earlier, that, is there a boundary anymore? And in terms of nationalism and in terms of regionalism, we were talking about this, and I think we kind of think in a similar direction, that we see all these lines kind of blur. And at least from where I am working in visual arts at the Bangkok Art and Culture Center is kind of in the center of the town, where I see a lot of young people coming in and a lot of changes in their behaviors and a lot of changes in the way that they think. And the definition of here and now is definitely different from my perspective. And the only thing probably I can say for sure is that there are more individualisms going on. And I don't think you can have one definition of anything. And that you have to embrace. You have to embrace that fact. And kind of see, maybe pull it back and think and see everything in terms of the system thinking rather than the content, and maybe allow for other definitions of here and now. I think this is what I'm thinking.
Very relevant, yes, thank you.
I think when I try to think of here and now, I just feel that it's actually like a dot of line here and now for yesterday. It was already a past, so that's already that was a here and now for yesterday, but now it's a here and now, and then when we move on to tomorrow, so we're gonna have a new here and now. Yes. So I see that is the kind of the imaginary space, and something that us human beings probably trying to figure out what is here and now is actually an ongoing here and now. So in line of music that I research when I try to find out what the music was maybe a decade ago, or when I was researching, so which is 5 years ago. So music 10 years ago and 5 years ago for then was already completely different in terms of what people were listening to, what people were performing, or what the artists are performing. Like 10 years ago, Bossa Nova suddenly flooded into Thailand, and Bossa Nova became mainstream, and that was the first time when I thought that how could Bossa Nova become a popular
in every cafeteria.
and 5 years ago, Bossa Nova's gone, and it's moved into something else, which so it's kind of interesting in terms of every here and now in each section in time will kind of draw a beautiful line for music path. Actually, for me, it is like that.
It's actually create more possibilities of what here now is, of course, very subjective to geologically, times or everything. Yes, please. What do you think?
I'm not a music person.
Mm-hmm. You don't listen to music, I heard.
No, I don't turn on television and radio. Most, but very few time to play the CD. But I like observing people.
Yeah.
And the first, I have two stories to tell. One is the music from the ethnic group in Vietnam again. The Black Thai in Vietnam. In the old day, the singer is old people, and they sing in just only in the important occasions, and the lyric is the same lyric they listen from the previous generation, and it's mostly about myth. But nowadays people connect worldwide. So the younger generation have the computer, and the older generation have the computer, and they connect with the Black Thai in Thailand, the Black Thai in Laos, and the Black Thai in the US. So they listen to the Molam music in Thailand, and then they mix it. So nowadays younger people can sing, not only the old generation, and they sing their own their own song and own music that has the influence from other countries. So
they took it as part of their own culture.
Right. And another case is my own niece.
Mm-hmm.
She's 13 or 14 years old. It's interesting. Nowadays she used the rhythm of the Japanese, Japanese rhythm, and she writes her own,
Lyrics on.
And she sing herself and record it herself, and just having one computer, and she does everything. She draws animation, she writes story, and she sing, and this is like here music is something like that. I mean, it's just the music of their own.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's become personalized, that you'd taken, it doesn't matter where the origins are, but it seems like everything is mixed up and being, how to call it, organically embedded into a person's. So maybe because we have quite a limited time, this could be, we are trying to make this session as something that can be opened up in the afternoon. We will see a lot more of this kind of experiments or the things that we try to do with music. We'll see more some of the compositions, we see some of the improvisations ideas, we'll see more some of the even the educational aspect of what music could be passed on with generations as well. So maybe last question before we are going to have lunch now is that you can please play around with these three words: new, authentic, and classic. So which one that actually you would like to maybe take it onward with your musical journey within your work? Okay, please, okay. And the first thing she said that she does believe in authenticity. Please start.
สามารถอธิบายในภาษาอังกฤษได้ใช่ไหมพี่ไม่เชื่อใน authenticity อ่ะ
Translate, yes.
ก็คืออย่างคนไทยคนแบล็กไทยในเวียดนามเนี่ยเขาไม่สนใจอ่ะคือว่าแบบว่าคุณจะร้องได้เหมือนคือทุกครั้งของการร้องเนี่ยคุณเพิ่มอะไรเข้าไปมันไม่ได้แบบว่าคุณจะต้องร้องให้เหมือนเดิม
She said there's an example for example in Vietnam, the aesthetic of how the music is beautiful is not only if you can sing like the original, but it's always the idea that you contribute your own, you improvise and you made your own version of it. So she really doubts on what authenticity means. They're always looking for what's interesting, not what is the origin or what's the fact or what's the truth within that action. Yeah. So maybe very concise. Yes.
Okay, 3 questions, but all are very difficult. All 3 words are interesting: new, authentic, and classic. Well, classic has time attached to it a little, maybe, and I don't know. I mean, if I have to choose one, I don't think I can. I think all 3 are questions of the era. That is something you have to keep in the back of your mind and trying to find the meaning and relevancy. For new, I mean, can I go to each? Maybe for new, I'm not sure if you can create anything new anymore. It seems like we've gone through so much in the past centuries, and whatever that we have today is being done, right? And I'm not sure if that is even the destination that you aim for. Should we try to create something new? I don't know. I mean, maybe we can try to aim for something a little different, like we can try to create something relevant. Because there's so many, for example, we have so many iPhone cases. Are they new? I'm sure they're new, right? I mean, and the next new technology or whatever that will come next, I'm sure they are new, but are they relevant to us in some case? I think this is more important question. Do they have the relevant to the era that we live, or do they have the authenticity, meaning it deserves a place to be in this world? It has some sincerity. And I think that leads to the last word, which is classic. I'm sure anything that's classic has some sincerity. Am I right? I mean, whether it's a good chair, or good piece of music, or good art, it has the genuinity of the creator. I think that's just a very important quality to have, whatever kind of work that you are doing.
It's a sincerity. And the honesty within the word.
Interesting. Well, me, I always look on or search to hear something new in terms of sound-wise and music-wise. the latest innovation sound that I've heard of is just I just randomly went through this thankful technology, this new online radio, which you can now listen to any of the podcasts from anywhere in the world. And just this small section of podcasts from New York, actually, they put the title of the session of the music for cyclists.
Musical cyclists.
Cyclists, and I thought that, wow, what would a music for cyclists? So I just kept on listening. So what it was, it's just kind of the classical music that has been put in a loop, like you go on, like you, yeah, exactly. So for me, this is new. It doesn't matter that you have to be something new completely, because obviously that everything in this world has been touched, has been done, has been created before, but if you put it in a new context, so that I call that innovative. So for me, something like that is new,
and personal discovery,
and it excites me. And to do that, you need to be authentic. To be able to create something new, you need to be authentic.
So it's not actually the perceptions of the work, but it's actually not the makers of the work. So it's both sides, isn't it? It's not just only the work itself, but it's how you look at the work as well.
Yeah, I think it's I want to talk about the authenticity more, because I feel that is very important, even though you totally do not believe in authenticity. For me, authenticity is honesty. To judge who's the most authentic, who make the most authentic work, no one could say, because if the person should know that, are you honest with yourself enough? Are you actually, can you have the skill to bring what you believe and recreate it out for the audience in terms of music? So with that, how can you judge? How can you go on and argue about the artist's authenticity? But I think that is a very, very important thing, especially I found that why it is the most important thing. When I was making the film, I was trying to think that I'm making a documentary film about music, and how can I make the audience believe in those characters? So I must find people who can actually shine through their honesty, and that's become an authenticity in their music, because what they do and what they believe is come up through music itself. So I'm not even talking about the skill. You don't need to be skillful to be authentic. That's I see that's my point. And when it's come to classical or classic, I feel that classic is a very, very vague, very, very vague genre. I feel that any kind of music, any genre of music can turn into classic or classical music once it have a popular touch. So I always thought that classical music was a pop music once, like Mozart was. Mozart was a popular artist once. So So once when some music become popular music and is backdated, so that's become a classic.
Yeah, maybe like really kind of like this is nice to hear, maybe for someone who strongly believes in what these three words actually mean for us. So maybe can we have a little bit of comments, maybe from the floor as well, or questions that you like to ask our three curators and directors here? Any questions, or you're all hungry? You can hear your stomach singing now. Any comments or any questions? Okay, well, so maybe we can still continue to discuss. We still have quite a long day to go. We have still at 1 o'clock 3 sessions in 3 rooms with different topics, and also breakout sessions at 2 o'clock, and also the concert that we can continue to discuss musically on these terms as well. So anyway, thank you very much for our 3. Please give them a big hand. ค่ะคุณพิชยาคุณพัชราคุณวรารัตน์นะคะ Thank you very much for being with us, and I'll see you again at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much.